I'm Blair, and I'm standing in the doorway of my family's beachfront estate in Northern California, the salty breeze from the Pacific tugging at my hair. This place, this sprawling, sunlit masterpiece of glass and cedar, is more than a house. It's my father's dream, built brick by brick with his sweat and love, valued at a staggering $30 million. Every corner holds a memory. The kitchen where my mom taught me to bake, the deck where my dad and I watched sunsets, dreaming up stories about the waves. But today, as I step inside, my husband Wesley's voice cuts through those memories like a knife. "This place is ours now, Blair," he says, his eyes gleaming with something I can't quite place. "I've made sure of it." I laugh, sharp and brittle, because he can't be serious. "This house is mine, my father's legacy, entrusted to me alone." Wesley's standing there, arms crossed, a smug grin spreading across his face like he's just won a game I didn't know we were playing. My stomach twists, but I push it down, clutching the folder of documents that prove my name, Blair, is the only one on the deed. This isn't just about a house. It's about everything my father built, everything I've fought to protect. Growing up, I wasn't the kid you'd expect from a family with this kind of wealth. My parents, both sharp as tacks when it came to real estate and finance, raised me to value people over possessions. Sure, we had money, more than most, but my allowance was smaller than my friends', and I went to public school in our little coastal town, not some fancy academy. My dad used to say, "Money doesn't define you, Blair. Your choices do." Those words stuck with me, especially when kids at school started whispering about our mansion or begging to come over, thinking I lived like some movie star. I was 12 when I learned how cruel those whispers could be. My best friend back then, Clara, invited me to her house for a sleepover. We were playing video games when I accidentally knocked her console off the dresser, cracking the screen. My heart sank. I didn't have the cash to replace it, and my parents had strict rules about not lending money. "You're rich, Blair," Clara snapped, her voice sharp with betrayal. "Why can't you just buy me a new one?" I tried to explain, my cheeks burning, but she didn't listen. By Monday, the whole school was buzzing with rumors. Blair, the rich girl who refused to help a friend, who probably broke the console on purpose. The worst part? Clara teamed up with another girl, Sophie, to spin a story that I'd borrowed money from them and never paid it back. Kids I barely knew started cornering me at lunch, asking why I was so stingy. I felt like I was drowning in their words, my shyness, making it hard to fight back. When my parents found out, my dad sat me down over dinner, his eyes kind but firm. "Blair," he said, "you don't owe anyone your money or your trust. If someone pushes, just say you need to check with us. Protect what's yours." That night, he met with Clara and Sophie's parents, clearing my name. The girls mumbled apologies, but their smirks never faded. I kept my distance after that, learning early that wealth could make you a target. Those lessons shaped me. At 42, I've built a life I'm proud of, working as a cybersecurity analyst at a fintech startup in San Francisco. It's not a glamorous job, but it's meaningful, protecting people's data, keeping their trust. My parents' values guide me, from the way I budget my paycheck to the way I choose my friends. I've always been cautious, maybe too cautious, about letting people in. But when I met Wesley, something felt different. Wesley came into my life 7 years ago, introduced by a colleague at a noisy downtown bar. He was 41, a real estate agent with a quick laugh and eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He wasn't like the guys I'd dated before, too serious or too focused on my last name. Wesley was warm, grounded, and didn't seem to care about my family's money. We talked for hours that night, about everything from our favorite hiking trails to our dreams of traveling the world. 2 years later, we were married in a small ceremony on the cliffs near our town, my parents beaming as they welcomed him into our family. But even then, I held back a piece of myself. I didn't tell Wesley the full scope of my family's wealth, not because I didn't trust him, but because I wanted him to love me for me, not for what I might inherit. When I finally brought him to the estate, a month into our marriage, his jaw dropped. "Blair, this place is unreal," he said, wandering the halls like a kid in a museum. His awe was endearing at first, but his questions started piling up about the house's value, my dad's investments, things I didn't even know myself. I brushed it off, chalking it up to curiosity. But deep down, a small voice whispered, "Be careful." One morning, a few months after Wesley's first visit to the estate, my phone buzzed with a call from my mom. Her voice was tight, the kind of tight that makes your heart skip. "Blair, it's your dad," she said. "He's in the hospital." The words hit like a punch. My dad, the man who jogged every sunrise and ate kale like it was his religion, had been hiding a cough that wouldn't quit. I drove to the hospital with my mom, my mind replaying our last visit. He'd looked thinner, his laugh quieter, but I'd told myself it was just stress. Now, sitting in the sterile waiting room, I couldn't shake the guilt. The diagnosis came like a tidal wave. Lung cancer, advanced, too far gone for surgery. My dad, always so strong, tried to smile through it. "I'm sorry for worrying you, kiddo," he said, his voice hoarse. I wanted to scream that he wasn't a burden, that he was everything. My mom and I took turns staying by his side, but hospital rules kept visits short, limited to family. Dad hated that. "I want this house full of laughter again," he told me one evening, his hand squeezing mine. "Promise me you'll keep it alive, Blair." I nodded, tears blurring my vision, vowing to honor his wish. Back home, I threw myself into plans to renovate the estate, picturing it as the warm, joyful place Dad always wanted. Wesley was supportive at first, bringing me coffee as I sketched ideas for a new patio. But his questions about Dad's health soon shifted to the estate. "What's the plan for the house if you know?" he'd say, trailing off. I'd dodge, saying it was too soon to think about. But his persistence grew, like a splinter I couldn't ignore. "We should talk to a lawyer, just to be safe," he suggested one night, his tone too casual. My stomach churned. I remembered Clara and Sophie, how their eyes lit up at the thought of my family's money. Was Wesley becoming one of them? I confided in him about Dad's illness, hoping sharing my grief would bring us closer. He listened, held me, but the next day, he was back to probing about the estate, the will, even my mom's finances. "What if something happens to her too?" he asked. The question felt like a betrayal, dragging up memories of kids at school who saw me as a walking bank account. I snapped. "This isn't about money, Wesley. It's about my dad." He backed off, but the rift between us was growing. Dad fought hard, but a few months later, he slipped away. The loss was a weight I couldn't describe, like the ocean itself pressing down on me. At the funeral, I stood by his casket, clutching my mom's hand, trying to hold onto his warmth. Wesley was there, quiet, but I noticed him talking to my cousin, who made a flippant comment about the estate sitting empty being a waste. I brushed it off, too raw to care. But later, as we stood in the estate's driveway, Wesley dropped a bombshell. "I've changed the locks, Blair," he said, holding up a shiny new key. "This place is in my name now. I've got the papers to prove it." My laugh was sharp, disbelieving. "What are you talking about?" I demanded. He pulled out a folder, waving it like a trophy. "I took care of it. We're secure now." My heart pounded as I grabbed the folder, my hands shaking. The documents looked official, but something was off. My name wasn't there. I felt the ground shift beneath me. This wasn't just about a house. It was about trust, about the man I'd married turning into someone I didn't recognize. I stood in the driveway, the ocean roaring in the distance, clutching Wesley's so-called legal documents. My father's estate, his pride and joy, was slipping through my fingers, or so Wesley thought. "You can't do this," I said, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. "This house is mine. Dad left it to me." Wesley's smirk faltered, but he doubled down. "Blair, it's ours. I did this for us. You'll see." His words felt like salt in a wound, and I knew I had to act fast. That night, I dug through my dad's old files in the study, the same room where he taught me to balance a checkbook. Tucked in a locked drawer were the real documents, my name, Blair, clear as day on the deed, signed and notarized. Relief flooded me, but it was tinged with betrayal. How could Wesley, the man who'd vowed to stand by me, try to steal my father's legacy? I called my mom, my voice cracking as I told her everything. "He's not getting away with this," she said, her tone fierce. "We'll fix it, Blair." The next morning, Wesley showed up at the estate, demanding the keys. "This is my house now," he said, his confidence unnerving. I held up the real deed, my hand steady despite the storm inside me. "You're wrong, Wesley. This is mine." His face paled as he scanned the papers, but he didn't back down. "My lawyer, Marcus, handled everything," he insisted. "He's the best in the business." That name, Marcus, set off alarms. I'd heard whispers about him, a shady lawyer known for preying on desperate clients. I called security, a service my dad had insisted on for the estate. 2 guards arrived, and I showed them the deed, explaining Wesley's claim. They turned to him, asking for proof. Wesley fumbled, pulling out his forged documents, but the guards weren't fooled. "These don't match the county records," one said, checking his tablet. Wesley's bravado crumbled as he tried calling Marcus, only to get voicemail. His voice rose, frantic. "He took $200,000 from me. He swore this was legit." My heart sank, not for Wesley, but for the man I thought I'd married. He'd been scammed, but his greed had led us here. The guards escorted Wesley off the property, his shouts echoing as he cursed Marcus and even me, calling me selfish for hoarding the estate. I stood there, numb. As the reality sank in, my marriage was over. Wesley's betrayal wasn't just about the house. It was about trust, about the life we'd promised each other. I filed for divorce the next week, my mom by my side as we met with Dad's lawyer, a real one, not some con artist like Marcus. The process was painful, but it gave me clarity. I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for myself, for the values my dad had instilled in me. After the divorce, I needed distance, not just from Wesley, but from the memories that haunted the estate. I moved into a small apartment in town, letting the ocean air clear my head. My mom and I started talking about Dad's dream, turning the estate into a place of joy, a haven for others. "Let's make it a reality," she said one evening over coffee, her eyes bright with determination. I nodded, feeling a spark of hope. The house had been my anchor through grief. Now it could be something more. We poured our hearts into transforming the estate into a boutique inn, naming it Sunset Haven. I spent weekends painting walls, planting gardens, and designing cozy rooms with views of the Pacific. My mom handled bookings, her warmth drawing guests from across the country. By the time we opened, the inn was booked solid for months. Weddings, family reunions, even quiet retreats for couples. Every laugh, every clink of glasses on the patio felt like a tribute to Dad. I could almost hear him saying, "That's my girl." Wesley, meanwhile, hit rock bottom. I heard through a mutual friend that he'd lost his job, tangled in debt from Marcus's scam. At Dad's first memorial, held at a local chapel, he showed up uninvited, looking like a shadow of himself, unkempt, eyes red from sleepless nights. He tried to apologize, tears streaming down his face, but it disrupted the service, drawing whispers from my relatives. I felt a pang of pity, but his presence was a reminder of his betrayal. "You need to leave," I said quietly, and security escorted him out. It hurt, but I was done carrying his mistakes. Sunset Haven became my salvation. Managing it with my mom brought us closer, healing the wounds of loss and betrayal. We added a small cafe, a fire pit for evening gatherings, and a garden where kids could play. Guests raved about the inn's charm, leaving reviews that warmed my heart. "This place feels like home." I'd walk the grounds at dusk, the sunset painting the sky in pinks and golds, and feel Dad's presence. This was his dream, alive and thriving. A few months after Sunset Haven opened, I was tending the garden, the scent of lavender mixing with the salty air. A family was laughing nearby, their kids chasing each other through the grass. I paused, my hands in the soil, and felt a wave of pride. This place, my father's dream, was now a sanctuary for others, a place where memories were made. The inn wasn't just a business, it was a promise kept, a testament to resilience and love. My mom joined me, her smile mirroring mine. "He'd be so proud, Blair," she said, squeezing my shoulder. I nodded, my throat tight. knowing she was right. The inn's success grew beyond our expectations. We expanded, adding a pool and an outdoor lounge where guests could sip wine under the stars. Couples exchanged vows on the cliffs, families toasted milestones, and travelers found peace in our quiet corners. Each booking felt like a step forward, a way to honor Dad's vision while building my own future. The financial stability was a bonus, but the real reward was seeing strangers become friends, their stories weaving into the fabric of Sunset Haven. Word reached me that Wesley had turned his life around. A friend mentioned he'd landed a steady job in Sacramento, managing a small real estate firm. He'd learned from his mistakes, they said, and was trying to make amends. I didn't hate him anymore. His journey was his own now. Knowing he was finding his way brought a quiet peace, a sign that we were both healing, even if our paths would never cross again. Standing on the inn's deck one evening, watching the ocean swallow the sun, I thought about everything I'd been through. The whispers at school, Wesley's betrayal, the weight of grief. Each challenge had carved me into someone stronger, someone who could stand firm like my dad taught me. Sunset Haven wasn't just a place, it was proof that adversity could bloom into something beautiful. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained a purpose, a legacy that would outlive me. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and the fight to reclaim my father's dream. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and join us, where every sunset tells a story of resilience, love, and new beginnings. Keep building your own dreams, and I'll meet you on the shore.